This happened a few weeks ago. I'm Mark, and I had been doing wildlife research in the outback for a few months. I thought I knew what to expect, but it was nothing like I imagined. I set up my tent near a small town, where I heard whispers about local ghost stories. I thought they were just tales. That first night, I was focused on my notes, recording animal sounds. I could feel the campfire's warmth, and everything felt calm. Then I heard it, a rustling sound just outside my light. I assumed it was a kangaroo. I kept working, but the noise persisted, creeping me out just a little. The following days dragged on. I was busy with my research, but I couldn't shake the idea that things were off. I found strange tracks near my tent. They didn't look like any animal prints I knew. Local animals acted weird too, like they were scared of something. Then I heard about a person who had vanished near my campsite. It sent chills down my spine. Was it just a coincidence? Each night the sounds grew louder. I felt eyes on me, even when there was nothing in sight. I heard calls on the wind, and once, almost like laughter, high-pitched, echoing, making my skin crawl. I wanted to laugh it off, but something felt very wrong. On the fifth night, I was terrified. I stepped outside my tent with my flashlight, scanning the dark. The air felt thick and suffocating. I shone the light around and thought I saw something in the shadows, but when I looked, nothing was there, just darkness. Then I froze. I heard footsteps behind me, slow and deliberate. My heart raced. I whipped around, but there was nothing. My stomach churned harder. Was it just a trick of my mind? I tried to convince myself it was nothing, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. I hurried back into the tent. I was shaking as I lay there, trying to calm down. My breath was loud in the silence. Then I heard a whisper, soft and chilling. "You shouldn't be here." I felt ice shoot through my veins. I couldn't move. I wanted to scream, but my voice wouldn't come. I stared at the tent walls, feeling trapped. The sounds continued outside, branches snapping and low calls lingering in the air. I decided I needed to leave, but felt drawn to the door, like I had to look outside. I took a shaky breath and unzipped my tent. The moonlight spilled in, illuminating the clearing. I stepped out, heart pounding. I felt like I was walking into a trap. I turned slowly, scanning the area. This was my last chance to find anything at all. Then I heard that laugh again right behind me. I turned and the shadows were deeper than before. My pulse raced as I felt something rush past. I felt a rush of cold and warmth, fear mixing with the wild energy of this land. Then I saw them, shapes darting between the trees, and I realized I was not just seeing things. "Why are you here?" came a voice from the darkness. I couldn't speak. I couldn't think. I stumbled backward, ready to bolt, but it felt like something was blocking my exit. I turned and ran, but the darkness felt alive. I heard whispers all around me. "You shouldn't be here." The weight of those words swallowed me whole. I never returned to that spot again. The next day, I drove into town, desperate for answers. My mind was racing. I had to find someone who could explain what happened last night. Maybe the locals could shed light on the stories I'd heard. I parked at the dusty general store, its wooden facade creaking in the wind. As I stepped inside, the bell above the door jingled, and the smell of old wood and fresh coffee hit me. I spotted a few people lingering near the back, whispering. Their eyes flicked toward me, then away, like I was a ghost. I swallowed hard and approached the counter, where an older woman was stacking cans. "Excuse me," I said. "I wanted to ask about the local ghost stories. I've been hearing some strange things." She looked up, her expression unreadable. "Ghost stories? You mean the Skinwalker tales?" Her voice was low, almost a whisper. "Skinwalkers?" I repeated, unsure what she meant. "The shapeshifters, spirits of the land. They can take the form of animals or people." She glanced toward the back of the store, and her voice dropped even further. "Some folks say you shouldn't go out alone at night." The other customers shifted uncomfortably, and the tension in the air thickened. "What happens if you do?" I pressed. "People go missing, they hear things, feel watched. You shouldn't be where they roam," she said, her voice trembling slightly. I felt my skin crawl. The stories weren't just tales to entertain, they were warnings. I thought of the whispers I'd heard, the feeling of being followed. My stomach churned. Is there a way to protect myself? Her eyes narrowed. Stay away from their territory. That's your best chance. I nodded slowly, trying to process her words. As I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of something outside, a shadow darting past the window. My heart stopped. I hesitated, then stepped outside. The warmth of the sun hit me, but it felt unreal, like a false comfort. Then I heard it again, a soft laugh in the distance echoing off the trees. I froze, panic rising in my throat. I recalled the shapes from last night, their darting forms. Taking a deep breath, I forced myself to scan the tree line. That's when I saw it. A flash of movement barely visible. It looked like a figure, tall, hunched, and cloaked in shadow. I couldn't tell if it was moving toward me or away. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice shaking. I took a step forward, but the figure melted back into the trees like smoke. My heart raced harder. Was it a skinwalker or just my paranoia? I felt cold sweat trickle down my back. This place, these stories, they were real. I turned quickly, marching back to my truck, desperate to escape. As I lifted my keys, I realized I couldn't leave yet. What if I was the next victim? I had to find out more. With my heart pounding in my chest, I decided to visit the old ranger station nearby. The locals said that was where the most disappearances had been reported. But as I drove, the nagging question gnawed at me. Did I really want to uncover whatever dark truth awaited? The laugh echoed again, and the shadows seemed to stretch, wrapping around me as I sped toward the station. The ranger station loomed ahead, a solitary building swallowed by the forest. I parked my truck, the engine settling into silence. I stepped out, the air thick with unease. My heart raced as I walked toward the entrance, each step echoing in the stillness. Pushing open the door, I was met with a musty smell and dim light. Old maps and photos cluttered the walls. A desk sat off to one side, strewn with papers and a dusty, cracked computer. I half expected to find a ranger just waiting to share tales of missing persons. Instead, the place felt abandoned, like it held its breath. "Hello?" I called out, my voice breaking the silence. No answer. I glanced around, the unease coiling tighter in my stomach. I stepped further in, examining the faded photos on the wall. Most were blurry landscapes and rangers posing with their wildlife. But one picture caught my eye, a ghostly image of a figure on the edge of the woods, cloaked in shadows. My skin crawled. I turned to the desk and rummaged through the papers. Most were mundane reports, but then I found a folder labeled Unexplained Disappearances. My pulse quickened. Scraps of paper with names and dates fell out. Missing people, their cases old yet eerily recent. As I flipped through the pages, I stumbled upon a handwritten note tucked inside. It detailed sightings of strange creatures. People have seen figures that walk on 4 legs, then stand on 2. They mimic loved ones' voices. I shivered. It was the stuff of nightmares. Suddenly I heard a rustling outside. I froze, my heart thudding in my chest. Had someone followed me? I strained to listen. There it was again. This time a soft, mocking laughter floated through the open window. It was a sound that danced on the edge of sanity. I wanted to scream, to run, but my feet felt glued to the floor. I approached the window cautiously. Peering out, I scanned the tree line. Nothing at first, just shadows and shapes. Then I saw it. A tall figure, hunched in the underbrush, its eyes glinting like wild animal eyes. I felt the blood drain from my face. It was watching me. I stumbled back from the window, barely catching myself on the desk. My mind raced. What if it was a skinwalker? My instincts screamed at me to leave, but I needed to gather as much information as I could. Suddenly the door creaked open, and a man walked in. He looked weathered, with deep lines etched into his face. His eyes darted around, filled with a mix of fear and urgency. "You shouldn't be here," he warned, his voice barely above a whisper. "They're watching you." Before I could respond, he turned and rushed out into the woods. My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to follow him, to uncover what he knew, but the laughter grew louder outside, chilling my blood. Then I saw movement at the edge of the forest again. It was closer this time, advancing toward the station. My heart pounded. I had to decide fast, face whatever lurked outside, or trust the stranger who'd just warned me. With one last glance at the ever-widening shadows, I made my choice. As I turned to run, reality shifted, and in an instant, the laughter stopped. It felt like the world was holding its breath. I dashed for the door, just as everything around me went dark. I stumbled into darkness, my instincts screaming that I needed to escape. The air felt thick and electric, as if every shadow held a secret. I pushed through the door, fighting against the overwhelming urge to freeze. I needed to get away. Outside, the night was pitch black, the trees looming like ancient sentinels. My breath quickened and I started running, not caring where I went. Branches snagged at my clothes, and the forest felt alive, watching my every move. Then I heard it, footfalls behind me, heavy and deliberate. Panic surged through me and I glanced back, but whatever was tracking me remained hidden in the shadows. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was close, possibly right at my heels. As I ran, I caught a glimpse of movement to the left. A different figure emerged, weaving between the trees, mirroring my trajectory. It was like a dance, a sinister ballet. I had a moment to decide. Which entity was I risking my life against? I veered left instinctively, trying to lose the pursuer behind. Moments later, I skidded to a halt at a clearing illuminated by a pale moon. In the center stood an old fire pit, the stones cold and uninviting. The area felt strangely comforting despite the looming dread. I needed a moment to gather my bearings. My mind raced, trying to remember what I'd read in the ranger station about the disappearances, trying to make sense of what was happening. That's when I saw a shape darting between the trees. The figure, tall and hunched, emerged into the moonlight, its eyes glinting, a twisted reflection of life and death. It stood on two legs now, its body shifting unnaturally as it approached, closer and closer. I felt rooted to the spot, an icy grip on my throat. "Luke," a voice echoed, melodic and faint sweet. It sounded like my mother. My heart plunged. I remembered the notebook, creatures mimicking voices. A guttural laugh erupted from the thing, sending shivers down my spine. Instinct kicked in, and I turned to run again, back into the maze of trees. With every step the laughter followed, resonating in my ears like an unshakable curse. I darted through the branches, desperate to hunt for safety. I thought about the stranger's warning, a chill crawling up my spine as I realized he had likely seen this too. Then something remarkable caught my eye, a flicker of light ahead. Just beyond the tree line, small and inviting, was the glow of a campsite. Hope surged in my chest as I sprinted toward it. Maybe there were people there, maybe I could seek refuge. But as I neared, a sudden weight of dread washed over me. The figures around the fire appeared still, too still. Just as I stepped into the clearing, I froze. I could see their faces. They were all familiar. Friends, some long gone. Their expressions were blank, glassy eyes trained on me. I stumbled back, realizing this was a trap. I was surrounded not by safety but by something much worse. Panic clawed at me again as I heard the laughter growing louder, echoing across the darkness. Someone was in the forest and they knew my name. I backed away slowly, my pulse pounding in my ears. The unblinking eyes of my friends bore into me like frozen stones, their faces twisted in a chilling calm. The fire flickered, casting dancing shadows that seemed to breathe with the figures, and the laughter intensified, wrapping around me like a noose. "Don't you want to join us?" one of them asked, voice low and taunting. It was Daniel, my best friend from childhood, or at least it looked like him. My stomach twisted. I remembered the stories, how creatures could take on familiar forms to lure victims. "Get away from me!" I shouted, panic cracking my voice. I turned, ready to sprint back into the dark woods when a familiar scent washed over me. Smoke and cedar. It reminded me of time spent camping, laughing around the fire with those very friends. It felt wrong now, twisted and twisted. As I darted back into the trees, the laughter shattered the air. becoming a cacophony that echoed in my skull. I stumbled on roots and brambles, branches clawing at my skin as if the forest itself wanted to hold me. I needed to think. My heart raced, but the adrenaline brought clarity. I remembered my flashlight still laced around my wrist. It had to be somewhere. I had to find it. The light could help me see things for what they really were. That was a risk I was willing to take. But as I moved deeper into the forest, deeper into the darkness, I heard a new sound. It was soft at first, a rustling of leaves, a glimpse of shadow that flickered just beyond my periphery. My breath caught in my throat. I paused, straining to listen. Was it the creature or was it something else? Then I heard it again, closer this time. Like a whisper, but not in words. It felt almost like a warning. Against my better judgment, I hesitated. Maybe it was someone else, another survivor, or something that could help me escape this nightmare. I pushed forward cautiously, the tension in the air growing thick. As I crept through the underbrush, I stumbled into a small clearing. And there, by a massive oak tree, I saw a figure crouched low, half hidden in shadow. "Help me," it said, voice low and broken. I squinted into the darkness, fighting to see. It looked like a man, but his features were vague, distorted. "Who are you?" I asked, every instinct screaming at me to run. The creature's eyes glimmered eerily in the moonlight. "Please, they're coming," it whispered urgently, glancing back over its shoulder with fear etched across its face. "You have to trust me. They can't know we're together." My heart raced. Was it another trick? But time was running out. I could still hear the distant laughter clashing with the quiet hum of the dark. I took a step closer, ready to learn more, or to flee, when suddenly I felt it. A rush of cold air sweeping through the clearing. Then everything went dark. I gasped as the darkness swallowed me whole. No light, no sound, just an overwhelming void. I stood frozen, feeling the weight of uncertainty press against my chest. Then, slowly, a flicker of light blinked to life in the distance. I staggered toward it, each step mingling hope with dread. The light grew brighter as I approached, revealing the massive oak tree again. The figure was still there, but it had shifted from a crouch to a stand, stretching its arms like a starved beast. I hesitated, my instincts screaming to run. "You came back!" it rasped, its voice trembling with urgency. "You don't understand, they'll find us. You must hide." "Who are you? What are you?" I asked, panic creeping into my voice. "I'm someone like you," it said, a hint of desperation breaking through its distorted features. "Lost and hunted. You need to trust me. They're out there." "Who?" I demanded. Before it could answer, shadows gathered around us. I felt a sudden chill slice through the air. The laughter echoed again, but this time it held a sinister edge, locating my position as if the woods were alive with unseen eyes. "Come!" the figure urged, grabbing my arm. I felt a strange warmth radiate from its grip. We darted behind the oak trunk as the laughter muffled, turning into whispers, weaving through the branches overhead. As we crouched in the shadows, I stole glances at the figure beside me. It was not just its looks. I could feel something was deeply wrong. Its eyes flickered with panic, but there was also something familiar behind the fear, something unsettling that clawed at me. "I need my flashlight," I whispered, suddenly aware of how vulnerable I was, bounding blindly into darkness. "It has to be around here." The figure nodded, but as it turned to guide me, something flickered in its expression, an urgency that I couldn't ignore. "No, it's too dangerous to go out in the open. You can't let them see you." "But I can't stay here." My voice shook with frustration. "What do I do?" Just then the laughter exploded again, sharp and piercing, drawing closer. The figure pressed its finger to its lips, silencing me with a frantic gesture. Then the shadows came alive. From the dark of the forest, shapes began to materialize, moving between the trees. I could see them partly illuminated by the soft glow of moonlight, thin and gaunt forms, resembling people from a distance, but definitely not human. Their limbs twisted at unnatural angles as they moved effortlessly around the clearing, circling us like predators. I could only watch in frozen horror as one leaned forward, its face obscured but eyes unblinking, locked onto mine. My breath hitched in my throat as recognition washed over me. This one had my friend's face. "Run!" the figure beside me hissed, and it broke through the underbrush just as one of the shadows lunged forward. I hesitated for a heartbeat longer, panic swallowing my instincts whole, and then I followed the only shred of trust I had. We darted into the trees, heart pounding as the chase began. But just before I could lose myself in the woods, I caught a sound, a sickening crack as if a twig had broken violently behind us. My mind raced. Something was hunting us, and it was catching up fast. I ran, the damp ground swallowing my every footfall. The figure was ahead of me, weaving through the trees with an agility I couldn't match. I could hear the shadows behind us, their hushed whispers carrying on the wind like a dark omen. "Keep moving," the figure called back, glancing over its shoulder. Panic gripped my chest. It was too close. I could feel it. Just when I thought I could manage to catch my breath, a sharp crack sent me spiraling into a panic. I glanced back, and that familiar face with hollow eyes stared back at me, its mouth a twisted grimace. It wasn't just a figment of my imagination. It was there, looming in the shadows. "Don't look back," the figure yelled again. "They want you to freeze." I forced myself to turn away, but the image of my friend haunted me, a ghost of what had once been. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, both at the figure and at the shadows that swirled behind us. I pressed on, more wild than logical, just trying to escape. "Stay close." The figure led me down a narrow path, the trees crowding together as if they were closing ranks. My heart raced with every step. Fear danced on the edges of my thoughts, threatening to consume me whole. "Where are we going?" I gasped, struggling to keep up. "To the Willow Grove," it replied urgently. "It's safer there. They can't follow us if we reach the barrier." I barely registered the words as we plunged deeper into the woods. The laughter transformed into a low growl, a sound that stirred the depths of my instinct to survive. Each turn felt more desperate than the last, the shadows swirling as if they were alive, reaching out, trying to pull me back. Then we burst into a small clearing. The air felt different here, heavier, charged with an electric current. Massive willow trees curved around us, their long branches trailing like fingers towards the ground. I caught my breath, but my question hung in the air. "Is this, safe?" The figure nodded, but its face tightened with concern. "For now. But we don't have long. We must act before they regroup." "Act?" My mind spun. What could I possibly do? The shadows were relentless. They would descend upon us. I couldn't help but glance at the darkness behind me. Then everything shifted. The air turned cold, and the shadows coalesced at the edge of the grove. The laughter twisted into shrieks, and suddenly they were screaming my name. "Help us! Help! Help!" My heart stopped. Each scream sounded like my own voice, distorted and hollow. I couldn't understand. Why were they calling out to me? "Don't listen," the figure urged, its voice shaking. "You can't help them. They're not who they seem." Grappling with disbelief, I hesitated, looking back and forth between the figure and the shadows. But as they stretched their arms toward me, I knew I had to decide. Before I could respond, the ground beneath our feet began to tremble. The willow trees shook as a low rumble filled the air. "We need to move," my companion screamed, pulling me toward the heart of the grove. But before we could take another step, I saw something break through the shadows, an outline near the edge, familiar yet grotesque. It was my friend, twisted and inhuman, eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "Please, help me." My body froze. I was struck by sheer terror. I felt trapped in the moment, unable to tear my gaze away from the figure that had once been my friend. Its voice echoed through the grove, laced with pain and desperation. "Help me," it cried, but the words twisted in my ears, wrapping around my mind like a vice. "No!" the figure beside me shouted, dragging me back. "It's not your friend anymore. Trust me." I fought against the impulse to reach out, feeling the weight of its gnarled hands stretching toward me. Pain twisted inside me, longing to help the person I once knew, but I could sense something darker lurking beneath the surface, something wrong. Suddenly, a heavy silence fell over the grove. The growling shadows stilled, like a held breath. My heart raced as the figure of my friend leaned closer, its face contorting with a menacing grin. "You can save me, if you let me in." "No," I gasped, pulling away. "You're not real." The figure next to me pressed forward, urgent. "We have to get to the center. They can't touch you there." Its eyes darted between me and the twisted shape before us. "Run," I urged, turning back for a moment to face the growing shadows. They were merging into a thick wall of darkness, everything else fading away. Surrendering to this nightmare wasn't an option. With a deep breath, I took off toward the heart of the grove, my companion right beside me. The long trailing branches of the willows brushed against my arms like icy fingers, pulling at my clothes, while the air grew heavier with the scent of damp earth and decay. Every step felt like I was wading through treacle, the ground itself fighting against my escape. Behind us, the cacophony of screams rose again, a horrific symphony of my friends' voices mixing with the shadows' growls, a symphony that clawed at my sanity. What if they were right? What if I could save them? Just one more look. "Focus! Don't look back!" The figure's voice cracked, and it hastened its steps, pulling me forward with it. The grove was transforming, the willow trees bending and swaying as if they were alive, guarding the secrets of the darkness that loomed outside their ethereal circle. Then we reached the center of the grove, where the ground was marked with strange symbols, etchings that pulsed with a faint glow. "This is the barrier," my companion explained, almost out of breath. "Stand in the circle. They can't cross it." I hesitated, glancing back towards the edge of the grove. The shadowy figure of my friend still stood there, waiting, yearning. "I can't just leave them," I shouted, my heart racing, torn between the need to help and the instinct to flee. The voice of my friend caught on the wind, pleading, "Please, help me, I'm still me, don't abandon me." "What if it is?" I whispered, desperation clawing at my belief. Could they truly be trapped? "Now!" the figure yelled, urgency pulling me back into reality. I stepped into the circle, and a rush of power surged through me. I looked back, and my friend's grotesque form twisted in rage as it approached, yet something invisible halted just outside the glowing barrier. Fear surged through me as I realized I could escape, but my friend couldn't. Then everything shifted. The shadows drew back, and in a flash the grove filled with an eerie stillness. The air thickened, pressing down on my chest, and I knew then that I had acted too late. As I turned to face the glow of the symbols, I felt a cold hand wrap around my wrist. "The price is steep for those who abandon their own." The voice dripped with malice, echoing eerily in the air. I trembled, the darkness whispering its threat. As panic surged within me, I knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. The tension in the grove hung heavy, a palpable weight I could taste in the back of my throat. The hand gripping my wrist was cold, its fingers like iron. I glanced down to see the twisted form of my friend just beyond the barrier, its features still painfully familiar but now bathed in darkness. "Let go of me," I shouted, yanking my arm, but the grip tightened. I could feel the icy tendrils of fear crawling up my spine. This was no ordinary creature. It was something far more sinister. "Your friend is lost," the voice hissed, each word dripping with contempt. "Join us, save yourself the pain of their betrayal." I wanted to scream, to deny everything it said, but the truth wrapped around me like a chain. It was hard to admit, but deep down, I feared that the figure before me might not be my friend at all. Maybe this was the very thing that had consumed them. "Listen to me," my companion said, stepping forward. "We have to break this connection. Focus on the symbols. They're your key." The words resonated in my mind as I fought to free myself. I turned my gaze to the glowing symbols at my feet. They pulsed softly, inviting, and in that moment, I noticed something else. Lines like cracks in ice spread through the barrier, casting shadows as if it were weakening. Suddenly, the figure that had once been my friend laughed. It was a fool's laugh, filled with malice and glee. You think that light can save you? All it does is feed the darkness. My heart raced. I felt trapped between two worlds, one filled with familiar voices and faces, the other cloaked in pure terror. The barrier flickered, the glow dimming momentarily as shadows swirled outside of it. I could see more now. The grove was not empty. Others lingered, figures shrouded in darkness with eyes gleaming like hungry wolves. "Help me." The raspy voice of my friend echoed again, sorrow and rage intertwined in its plea. I froze, grappling with the desire to give in. A part of me wanted to prove that I still cared. "No," I shouted, pushing against the urge. "I don't trust you." Drawing from a deep reserve I didn't know I had, I willed myself to focus on the symbols. I thought of all the good times with my friend, the memories that felt so alive. They couldn't just be erased like this. In the blink of an eye, the grove erupted in chaos. The ground trembled beneath me as I felt the power of the symbols surge, a fierce glow illuminating the shadows around us. The figures wavered, confusion flickering across their haunting faces. "Fight it! Fight for them!" my companion cried, his voice barely breaking through the overwhelming noise. I pressed harder into the circle, my palms outstretched towards the symbols, and something inside me clicked. A wild energy washed through me, bursting forth in a blazing light. The shadows howled in retreat, but I could still see my friend's twisted form pushing forward. The cruel smile faltered, replaced by something more desperate. "Don't leave me," it screamed, its voice splintering into echoes that clawed at the corners of my mind. Then everything shifted. Blinding light engulfed the grove. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying it would protect me from what lay outside the sanctuary. When I dared to open them again, I found myself alone in the center of the grove. "No," I gasped, panic rising. Where had my companion gone? That's when I heard the soft whisper, a figure emerging from the shadows just beyond the circle, its shape familiar, yet distorted. It took a step closer, and I knew this was just the beginning of the horrors waiting for me in the darkness. The light flickered behind me, and my heart raced as I faced the warped figure slowly emerging from the shadows. This time, it carried an air of familiarity, but the distortion in its features twisted my gut into knots. It was my friend, my dear friend, standing on the threshold of the circle, but their presence felt off, felt wrong. "Help me," they begged, voice quaking with something that felt like longing but tasted like sorrow and betrayal. "You're still with us." Uncontrollable emotions surged within me, love, doubt, fear. I struggled to reconcile what I felt in my heart with what lingered in my mind. The stories of skinwalkers, of things that wear the faces of those we've lost. My heart sank into despair as the laughter echoed around me, a chilling reminder that I was not alone. The shadows, those malevolent figures, clawed at the edges of my perception. "You shouldn't have fought it," came a voice now echoing from the darkness around me, a chorus of whispers that made reality warp and bend like light through a broken prism. The figure shook its head knowingly, a smile creeping onto its distorted face. "We could still be together. Don't you remember the good times? The laughter?" My stomach twisted, and I recoiled, stepping further into the circle's warmth. "You're lying. You're not my friend. You're something else." "Am I, though?" The figure's tone shifted, playful, yet dark. "What if you're the one lost? What if, in this very moment, you two are the same?" I felt it, the potent mix of fear and longing. I had to break the connection. In that chaotic swirl of emotion, something inside me ignited. The symbols beneath my feet pulsed with warmth, as if responding to my turmoil. I could feel their energy channeling through me just as the darkness crept closer. "Focus!" my companion's voice urged, but now it emerged from a different space within me, echoing against the shadows that encircled us all. "You can fight this. You don't have to let her in." I squeezed my eyes shut against the tempest of emotions whirling around me. I began to recall memories of my friend, the laughter we shared, long nights spent confiding, the promises made to always be there for each other. Those memories poured into me, feeding the light bubbling in my chest. "I can't abandon you," I managed to say to the figure, my voice trembling as I broke from the shadow's grip. "But I won't allow what you've become to claim me." The light surged inside me, sparking like wildfire through every ounce of uncertainty. I opened my eyes, feeling the crackling warmth around me as the symbols illuminated fiercely. The whispers turned frantic, rising to a fever pitch, blending into a howl of rage and despair that made the very ground tremble beneath me. The figure grimaced, its once familiar eyes now flash with hate. "It doesn't have to be this way. You don't understand what's coming. You'll regret it." I took a step back, heart racing, eyes locked on that haunting face as the shadows began to claw at the barrier, drawing close yet unable to breach it. "You're wrong," I shouted, finding strength as pure and raging as the dawn light. "I will not join you." With that conviction, I focused every rising pulse of energy, every vibrant memory directing it fiercely toward the symbols as they blazed a path of light that burned brighter than before. The shadows echoed their last desperate cries, twisted faces crying out as they shrank from the radiance. Then silence fell, a heavy, encompassing silence that wrapped around me as the glow expanded, forcing the darkness to recede. My friend's figure, warped and flickering, continued its cry, a howl twisted with disbelief, until it slipped back into the void. Seconds felt like hours as shadows melted into nothingness, glimmers of light enveloping the grove, leaving only the faintest trace of what had just transpired. I stumbled back, breathless, feeling the ache of uncertainty settle in my chest. I felt victorious, but the lingering whispers and half-formed figures of my past tugged at my awareness, filling the space with uncertainty. Had I truly escaped? Was it over? Or was this just the start of a deeper darkness clawing at the edges of my reality? The glow in the symbols waned, leaving me standing in an almost tranquil beauty. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere, the darkness watched, waiting for another chance. Taking a deep breath, I stepped slightly to the edge of the grove, feeling the boundary that pulsed lightly beneath my sneakers. I couldn't go back. No, procrastination had brought me pain before. But every time I glanced back, I saw flickering shapes in the distance, a reminder of what had happened. It would never fully end. This is the danger of confronting what lies behind the veil. I had escaped the immediate peril, but I could never be free of it. And I knew one thing for certain. I would never return to this place again. I turned my back on the glimmering grove, leaving behind unanswered questions, and with every step I took toward the unknown, the cacophony of my past whispered faintly in the air around me. I could feel something lurking just beyond the light, waiting patiently, and it changed how I would see everything moving forward.